and welcome. I don't know what to introduce you at except my sister, my biological sister, my what do I that one person that I seem to get along with, even though we're on such different paths altogether. The person that I don't talk to that much, but whenever we do talk, it seems like no time has gone. And from my perspective, at least, it's like we're always understanding each other somewhat. We're always going back to whatever, I don't know what it is, whatever connection we got between ourselves, that's not doesn't seem to get in the way. Everything else doesn't seem to get in the way of it, at least from my perspective. And I know we've had our ups and downs, and I know we've gone through different things, and I know you told me at a certain point that you had to work through the judgment of me going away from my kids, and you struggled with that part. But anyway, in the meantime, here we are.
I think that what makes a difference is realizing that we are grown-ups and that we make our own decisions, and that bridges bridges differences is actually finding common ground.
Mhm.
I think that's the best way to maintain this, in my view, and in my experience with you, for sure. I just lost my train of thought just there. Is finding common ground to be able to maintain the relationship, because there will, in my view, there will always be something that we can talk about.
Mhm. Mhm.
If we both want it, because I could say, well, I don't really agree with a lot of things, but I still want you in my life, you see. So
Yeah. So can you, because you got straight into it, can you please introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us your name, because I didn't even say that part.
mhm.
And I don't know, something, whatever you want to share about yourself, like whether it's a bit of your journey and your life and where you are right now and what makes you, I guess.
Is this what you're interested in at the minute? Because I have
To be honest, whatever, honestly, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I'm glad that you're here and that we can have this conversation. So, whatever you feel like it's in your soul right now that you would want to talk about,
mm,
go there.
if I'm just to start off with this, I'm Julia, well, Juliana, really. That
Hmm.
how you know me as your sister. Um, I am a little bit older than you, but not by that much. I I am married. I'm happily married. I have three children. Um, and mm, what else? What can I tell you apart from that? I think I'm at a point where I'm trying to kind of rediscover who I am, rediscover my identity, because I believe that when you become a spouse, and um this is my own perception, when you become a spouse and a mother, you, how should I say, you are no longer the person that you used to be. That's completely gone. You are somebody completely new.
Hmm.
And I think that that is okay. I think that to some extent, a lot of people say, well, I want to get my body back. I want to get my life back. I don't think you're ever going to get it. I think you become somebody new, and I think you're kind of being rebuilt into um, somebody maybe wiser, maybe, I don't know, just somebody newer. Because I've often wondered, what am I capable of? Who am I from the person that I used to be? And I think that I have kept some things, like I still like to knit, I still like to crochet, I still love to read, I still like to clean, and I have to clean because I still have small children and it's always messy. I don't know if you've seen that. And there was a short on Instagram about life with children and cleaning, especially when children have their half term. It's like trying to push the tide with a broom. It's like completely pointless, but you have to do it because you have to maintain a functional environment. You see, what else? What else can I say? I think we've had conversations, especially last week, where we've discovered that actually um, when we try to understand where each other is coming from, we
Hmm.
can learn one another. You said to me on, when did we talk? Was it on Friday?
Yeah,
You
I think
said
so.
you're a Mormon, and I know this is not particularly the name that we're encouraged to kind of call ourselves by, but I am actually not really bothered by it, to be honest. It makes it easier for people. But anyway, and you said to me that you feel like we can talk to one another. You don't feel like um excuse me, this is me paraphrasing, you don't feel like I'm rejecting you or trying to kind of preach to you or anything like that. And I think that um a lot of the things that I believe have become part of me. But I wouldn't say that I am a walking, talking, um, like scripture dispenser. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think to make my faith a part of my life, but I also accept that other people will choose to adopt different lifestyles and they will choose differently. And I think that's been probably the hardest thing for me. And
Mm.
because it's really, especially when you chose to leave your children, that's the bit that I couldn't really understand. And I think my faith has really helped me understand where you may be coming from. And even if I don't necessarily understand, it's just accept that you are my sister. You are your own person, and you are absolutely entitled to make your own decisions, because
Mhm.
I have no stewardship over you whatsoever, you
Mhm.
see. And I think that in that regard particularly, I think that was really helpful for me to use that faith that I have to build understanding rather than should I say resentment. So I was like, why have I even bothered? Because it's not even my life. But you are my sister, and I want to have a relationship with you. You know. So I think compassion and understanding maybe go a long way.
I mean, I love how, because of course, lately everything that comes around for me is the judgment part and the compassion part and acceptance. Because of course, when you judge somebody, you don't accept them as they are. So, oh my God, you said so many things in there that I wanted to pick at, and then we kept going, you kept going, and I forgot where we were. But what do you feel like? Oh yeah, the mom part. Becoming the mom and becoming a spouse and losing your identity, sort of. And this is something that I've noticed that has happened with me. This is the thing, and I think this is what we spoke about on Friday too, that once once we get to a certain point, as women at least, trying to find our purpose becomes let's have children, let's have children, and then that's going to be our purpose. And I feel like this is what's happened with me, somewhat. I got to the same point where you are now, of trying to rediscover yourself and figure out who you are right now, besides the mom and the wife. And I went to the complete end of the stick of that, of I cannot be in this environment at all. And I see, it's so funny because I never spoke about this on any of these. So I guess this is the time. If I didn't know that the kids were going to be fine with Alex, my ex-husband, I wouldn't have gone. But I think what added to that too was the fact that he was the one that suggested it. He was the one that's like, if you want me to have the kids full time, I'm more than happy to have them. So then, because I was at the point of trying to discover who else am I besides a mom and a wife, who else am I besides, well, at the time I wasn't a wife, besides just this circle that I seem to have put myself into, of getting up, doing stuff with the kids, taking them to school, come back, do stuff around the house, go back, pick them up from school, come back home, cook, clean, put them to bed. It was just this cycle, continuous cycle of the wheel. It felt like I was a rat in a wheel. So when I had the opportunity of going and doing something else with myself, many times I asked this question: is this gonna fuck my kids up? Because of course I asked the same question before I made the decision to get a divorce: is this gonna fuck them up, or is it gonna fuck them up even more if I stay? So I believe that there's no way in which we can protect our children all throughout their life, first of all. And I also know that no matter how we try to raise them to the best of our abilities, or to support them in their growth, we can never know how they're going to react, to how they're going to perceive what we're doing and how we're living our lives. So with that knowledge, it was a case of I want to tell my kids to live their life to their fullest, and I want them to be able to make decisions for themselves and to follow their own hearts, not to listen to mom and dad what they tell them to do, or society or anybody else around their life at the time, and feeling pressured into doing certain things for themselves. And how am I gonna show my kids that if I can't do that for myself? So I think that was the turning point for me. If I cannot make that decision for myself now, to go and live my life now, and to discover what whoever else am I, to remember who I am, right? Rather than this human meat suit. If I don't go and do this now, how am I gonna teach them they can do that for themselves?
Can I tell you, I actually thought a lot about, I think that thinking a lot about your decision, but again, please know that this is what I think, okay? It's not what anybody else should do. I think that thinking a lot about what you had done and whatever, I feel for myself that I will find out who I am by staying, because this is uncomfortable. This is my discomfort zone. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I find that it would be a lot easier to some extent to leave, but I'm not that way inclined. I am just not. It's just not me, you see, regardless of what society says or whatever. I think my instinct tells me, this is where I belong, and this is how I'm going to find out who I actually am. And I think that I think this is, to some extent, this is the crucible that I actually have to go through to um um yeah, to redefine who I am, because I think that me as a spouse and a mother is part of who I am. These roles, I think that they are encompassed by
Mm-hmm.
who I am. Do you see what I'm saying? I think
Yeah.
they contribute to me, to my becoming, so to speak.
Yeah, I totally understand what you said there about rather stay rather than leave, because leaving would be easier. I so get it, because of course it feels like running away from something, and I know everywhere I go, there I'm gonna find myself. If I leave out of fear, if I leave out of I need to go away from here because this environment is not beneficial to me, whatever. But if I done it out of love, and there's the other part, because when you said that and you said about your instinct is to stay because you've got the maternal instinct, which a lot of women in the world have. That's what they have. To me, it seems like I've had it, but it was the other part of me that knew that I had to move away was stronger, because I got to the point of I knew I wasn't doing my kids any good if I stayed. I
Mm.
knew that my behaviors and the way that I was and the way that I was reacting was not beneficial to anybody. And I always use this analogy of the alcoholic going to the bar, because when you're an alcoholic and you're trying to stop being an alcoholic, you're trying to get sober, you don't go like a day or two, oh, I haven't drank for 2 days, I can go and spend time with my friends in the pub because I'm going to be fine. You cannot do that, because you go to the pub and your old habits are going to keep coming to the surface. So in a way it feels like that's partly what's going on with me. It felt like the more I stayed in the environment and in the routines that I was in, the worse it was getting. And I know it's the unorthodox way of doing things. I know it's not normal. It's not what anybody else does. But I also know how much it's benefited them. Like looking back now, and I know it was hard to start with, and it was a struggle for me, it was a struggle for them, but I know it was the best decision that I made, because, and I don't know, because they're still little. So I don't know what's going to happen when they're going to become teenagers, let's say, and they're going to start asking me more questions. But until that time comes, I don't even want to think about it too much, because I don't know how they're going to react. I don't know if they're even going to get to that place. All I see is that my relationship with them has changed so much right now, and that there's more love in there. And
Mm.
and the way I respond to them has changed. The way that I can hold space for them has changed, because in the process of going away, I have learned to reparent myself.
In my conversations with our mom, because obviously we've had conversations about it, um, I have felt that it's very difficult for us to tell why you've decided to leave, because we were not in your relationship. We didn't know what you were going through. You see, it would be very unfair of me to say, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, because I am not your person, you see. And another thing that I want to say, oh, I felt really relieved when you did go back, because I think that repair is more important actually than rupture, because I think that we can repair a lot of things. And I think that there's merit to what you're saying about reparenting yourself. And with regards to, oh, there was something important I wanted to say, but obviously I've forgotten. Again, you and I, we have different personalities, we have different ways of, of referring ourselves to life and to people. I feel like with my relationship with my husband particularly, I feel like because I've made the decision consistently to stay, I feel like we've become stronger and closer together. I mean, we were actually just chatting this morning about how he knows so many of my ways of being, and he is so good at, sometimes, not all the time, but most of the times, at knowing how to put up with those ways. He knows things about me that nobody else knows, and I love that. I find value in that. And I also find value in learning how to get my act together after I've had a meltdown with my children. This is something that's happened last week, and I found it really, really difficult, because it really makes you feel quite low about yourself. But I find that for me, because again, this is my choice, this is how I'm viewing things, because I choose to stay and to work through things this way. I find that there's purpose for me in that, especially when we're talking about, who am I and what is my true identity. I haven't got there yet, but I've also learned to accept that it's okay if I don't know for now. It's okay if I just wait a little bit. I don't know how long I have to wait, but I like what you said on Friday. You said that, that my purpose is in the here and now, to do this is what stayed with me, that it's about doing the best that you can whilst you're here, right now, with doing this with your child, or doing this with this, or doing this with that, or I don't know. It really helped me, because I'm like, well, I don't need to look for this lofty kind of thing somewhere out there waiting for, this big revelation to kind of hit my head and to make me feel like I'm worthwhile, or that I'm worthy, or whatever, that there's real purpose in the here and now. And I have to say that after that conversation, and a conversation that I had with my husband, it really helped, especially in my relationship with one of my children, because the middle child really pushes my buttons all the live long day. I mean, she is the most magical button pusher ever. And I think that because she emphasizes so many of the things that I lack, I think it's a great opportunity for me to learn how to unlearn some things, how to become better at some things. Let me just share this with you, because it was so sweet. Because she was able to tell me after that, the not very pleasant interaction, she was able to tell me, "Mommy, I don't want to tell you, but I'm going to tell you, because I know you're not supposed to keep secrets from your parents, because that's what she's been taught in school anyway." She said, "But Mommy, I felt that when you were holding me like that you were holding me like a slave, I just held her in place, she that's what she's seen in the Prince of Egypt, the movie, because she felt trapped by me, I didn't hit her or anything like that, it was just very purposeful. I looked into her eyes and I grabbed her with my hands and I said, 'Daisy, you need to do whatever I asked her to do.'" Anyway, but then I think it was last night, we had a really lovely conversation where she said to me, "Mommy, you're the best," I don't know what she said, "you're the best mommy that I could have," she said to me when I was giving her a bath. She said, "Mommy, you cook for us, you even feed us, you clean for us, you were," and I said, "But Daisy, but what's the difference between me and a slave, well, mommy and a slave, because a slave can do things." And she said, "Mommy, you listen." And I was like, "Really? Do I actually listen to you?" And it was so humbling to hear her saying that to me, it doesn't let me off the hook, with other things. Don't get me wrong. And I know that children will say lots of things to kind of make you feel good. But what was really lovely is in those two instances is that she felt safe enough with me to say, "Mummy, I felt like you treated me like a slave." And then the other one, "Mummy, you listen." And I think that and I was reading another book. It was called Good Inside, and it's a parenting book. And she was saying something like, two things can be true at the same time. I can be both a sucky mom and a good mom. And I think that accepting that and kind of making peace with that is helpful. I don't always apply that, don't get me wrong, because sometimes I get swirled into all sorts of dynamics with my children, but it was just sweet. I just wanted to share that with you.
I
That's all.
mean, thank you so much for sharing it, because it just shows that kids, because I think we said this on Friday, they're closer, much closer to source, to God, right? They're much closer to that energy. And I don't think that anything that they say is to make us feel better, because I picked up on you saying that, and I'm like, no, they just say it because that's what they see. So
Mm.
her telling you that you're a great mom and you do this and you do that and you listen, it's I would take that as truth, because you cannot get more true than a child that tells you that, because kids don't
I'm
lie.
56. I wouldn't say that, I mean, I
Yes,
can
she doesn't have.
recognize the beginnings of a little bit of a people pleaser in her,
Mhm.
but she also does it because she sees me doing that. So anyway, if you want to analyze that, you can do that.
This is
Everybody.
what I mean. See, this is what I mean with no matter what we do and how we do things. Because, like I said, I moved away from my kids and I can see the same thing that you see in Daisy, I can see in Avi. He is
Mm,
completely turned into a people pleaser. He wants to make sure that daddy's okay so that he's okay. So he listens to what daddy says so he doesn't get into trouble, or he gets the things that he wants. So he's constantly doing that. And I'm like, well, what can I do about it? There's nothing I can do about it. I had to relearn how to come out of that. And the only thing that I can tell him is by showing. And then I picked up on something else that you said there with you staying, for example, in your relationship or with your kids, because that's what I did, right? I got divorced and I moved away from my kids. So, and those two things you still have in your life, because it's the life that you choose. It's like me choosing the other side of it.
mhm,
I so see all the benefits of what you said there, of staying in the relationship. And every time you work through something, you just get better at it and you get a closer connection to your person, to Haydn in this case, right? Because there's a lot of relationships, and this is something that Simon would say. He would say that there's an H relationship and an A relationship. So the A relationship are the codependent ones, and when one person starts to grow, the other one falls down, because they're
mm,
just interrelated that way. But when the relationship is as an H, when one grows, the other grows too, because
mhm,
they both grow together. And I feel like from what you've said, this is what it kind of sounds like you, between you and Hayden, that's what's happening. And
mm,
I totally see the value, like I said, of being in a relationship with somebody and working through stuff. But there's also that part, because if, for example, how I was with my ex-husband, right, like we weren't in that kind of a relationship. There was none of that in there. And there is that part of, is this beneficial to me or to him or to anybody else involved? So in our case, is this good for me, for him, and for our kids if we continue staying in this? Or is this something that needs to break away?
mm.
Because at the end of the day, yes, you can find your person and you can learn to grow with them, but there's also a lot of relationships that come just to teach us something, or for us to learn something out of.
Such a tough call to make, because
Yeah.
again, I wasn't in your shoes, you're not in my shoes. I think that's where not judging people comes into its own, because we just we see what we see. We've never been into their bathrooms when they were together in there. We've never been in bed with them, so it's very, we've never been in their conversations. And I think that's why, again, I would think I've been thinking so much, racking my brains to kind of come to terms and understand whatever you were doing, because I'm like, why does it bother me so much? But this is one of the things that I have come to understand, is that I wasn't there. I don't know what you've experienced, but this is what I want to say.
Mhm.
I read a around the time that you left. It was actually maybe a year into you leaving. It was called Where the Crawdads Sing. I don't know if you've seen the movie.
But
Uh, this girl who learns to live, who is slowly deserted by her family. By first of all, her mom leaves, then slowly her siblings, and then eventually her dad leaves, and she learns how to live on her own. But anyway, she later on learns, I don't remember exactly the details. She learns about what foxes do when they go through traumatic experiences. They leave their cubs, and it was really interesting because to me it was an answer to some of the questions that I had. um I don't remember exactly what the explanation was, but anyway, she learns that this is how, the animal kingdom works. um so again, I can't speak for your relationship because, again, we Hayden and I, we actually maintain a relationship with your former spouse, because we actually like him, and
You
again,
know what?
because
I like him too.
yeah,
This
because
is the funny part. Because see, for me, sorry to interrupt you, but for me, this is the one good part that's come out of it, you know? Instead of me staying in that relationship and trying to make that one work, breaking up and moving away has created a better friendship between us. Like
mm,
it's just changed our dynamics completely. Of course, once you go through all the shit and you learn to deal with whatever, and I like what you said about the fox, like the traumatic. And I also see, like, in the grander scheme of things, just looking at the way that our parents were to each other, right? And
yeah.
how they stayed together for us. And it feels like each one of us, like you, me, or Marius, because there's three of us. Anybody watching this, there's three of us, brothers and sisters, right? We're all working out somehow through the relationship that our parents had between themselves, in the relationships that we've got with the people around us, whether it's with spouses, with partners, or with our kids. I feel like we're all healing or changing the pattern that our parents had with themselves in our own worlds. I don't know what you were saying, but I interrupted.
I agree with that. I think that we unpick um bits of our upbringing all throughout our lives, and you know what, I think that there's no, this is what I think. Okay, each to their own, whoever wants to do things differently. I think that I unpick bits of how I've been brought up as I go about my day.
Mm.
Makes sense. As I
Yeah,
carry on being,
totally.
I carry on doing this, that, and the other, because I still have some brain space left to kind of think about stuff. I probably don't have as much, but because I'm constantly in a position that reminds me of different things, I think I have some limited time for reflection. That's how I think that, again, just like with, discovering or rediscovering who I am, just kind of happens a little bit here and a little bit there.
Mhm.
Unpicking, I think it's the same as well for our children. I think that they will, I think part of growing up is learning how to unlearn certain things that you've been taught subconsciously as you were growing up. And
Yeah.
I think we can mess up our children. I think we do it anyway because we're not aware of some of the things that we're doing in our relationship with them. I think we can limit that, with controlling our emotions and controlling our actions and whatever. But I think that some damage is inevitable. And I think that looking back on our childhood, particularly, I think that part of growing up and of becoming an adult is taking ownership for those things that have happened to you, and then deciding to do something with that for your own benefit. Do you see what I'm
You
saying?
are you are speaking my language. Like, that's exactly
There
what I
we go.
would say, because it's radical responsibility. It doesn't matter what's happened to us. It does, let's say it. But if we look at it from the perspective of, I'm an adult now, and what I do with my life and how I deal with the things that come up to the surface, I cannot keep pointing my fingers at my parents because they've done this and they've done that. I have to
Yeah.
accept responsibility for my own actions and for my own decisions, as fucky uppy as they might be sometimes. Because it's not always like, yeah, it's so funny because, see, I keep going back to this thing of me leaving, and it's that thought process of, I didn't want to get, part of me didn't want to get to the resentment part. I didn't want to resent my children. I didn't want to get to the point of waiting for them to grow up until I do life, or do life now and show them something different. You know, show
Mm.
him that life can go differently. And even maybe show him that don't get married so early if you don't feel like you're ready for it, or if you feel like you're pressured into it, because that was my story. You know, I got somewhat pressured into it because I was so scared and didn't know how to make decisions for myself, that it was like, well, you either get married or you just stop seeing this person or whatever. And I didn't know what to do. So I'm like, okay, let's get married, you know?
Something, because we both have neurodivergent children, and one of and all of the children particularly that I have, I feel like they are so far from the children that I would have liked to have had, right? Okay, they are not the children that I'm wonderful, like, not at all. And I am pretty sure, because I can see it from now, that they will mess up so often and so much in spite of the things that I'm trying to teach them,
You know
because
why?
some of the things that I'm teaching,
Because I
because
keep
they
saying,
can choose.
I thought about this when you were speaking about it earlier too. We all grow from fucking up. We all otherwise how are we gonna expand and grow and become better versions of ourselves if we don't fuck up, if we don't screw up, if we don't make mistakes, if we don't whatever, right? Because would you be where you are right now if you didn't have all the pain and suffering, let's say, that you had growing up? And seriously, the way I look at of course, the way I look at you and how you lived your life for a whole lot of years was a lot of pain and suffering. That's what I see. And then I remember even thinking not so long ago that you used to move so much. That used to be the theme in your life, that you moved so many places. And then I'm like, I am doing that now. I have moved so many times. And then there's the esoteric part of that is unconsciously, because we are light beings, everywhere we go, we activate certain frequencies in the place that we go to. So you moving so many times, unconsciously, you've activated some light codes that needed to be activated in that place of the world, whether it was back in Romania or here in the UK or wherever else you went, to Utah, I don't know. Everywhere we go.
To be quite honest, I'm looking at you and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's cool. It doesn't matter. But see, there's always something. We always think that if something bad happens to us or our children, that it's a bad thing. We always judge it as, oh, this is bad. Oh, this is gonna be terrible for them. And how are we gonna come out of it? But then we learn out of them. We learn. And like you said, once you get to a point, you take responsibility for your life. Okay, this has happened, but now I can't blame my parents anymore. Because I'm an adult and I need to learn to do stuff for myself. I can't keep pointing fingers. Anyway, just
I
ranting.
remember reaching a point, I don't remember, I scared of feeling sorry for myself. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't think this is working anymore. I think there has to come a point where you just stop doing that, because, and I think I had that revelation with taking ownership. I think it was after I had a conversation with our dad, actually, where he told me a little bit about his life,
Mhm.
and about the lack of affection and the abuse that he had to go through, because he was placed by his own parents under the care of one of his uncles or something like that. I don't remember. And it just made me think about how there are, and the same with, I was reading at the time, I was reading a book called The Choice. It is written by Edith Eger, and she is a Holocaust survivor. And she talks about something similar, I think. But anyway, it made me think about how those people in so some of the people who survived those things, they came out and they ended up influencing the world for good.
Mhm.
There's Viktor Frankl, I think. He is the guy
Yeah.
who talks about man's search for meaning.
Yes,
And
I've
it
read.
just made me think, well, if those people were able to take those experiences and to turn them into something that was going to benefit not only them but the world at large, then I can do it too. It means that this is possible for everybody because I'm a human too, kind of like that. I
Yeah.
think, referring back now to my religion, I think all throughout my life, maybe even before I joined the church, I don't quite know. I always had this feeling, that God was looking after me,
Hmm.
and that, all the experiences that I am going through, they will work together for my good. When I'm going to be a bit preachy now. When Joseph Smith was incarcerated, this is one of the greatest revelations that he received. There's a whole section in something that we consider, scripture and doctrine and covenants, where the Lord talks to him, and he talks about, even if the gates of hell will open against you, whatever, know this, my son, these things shall be done for thy good, or something like that. I don't know, because there's a whole host of things that are enumerated there, but it really gives you, how should I say, it gives you perspective, it gives you hope, it helps you that to it helps you look at your life as not is, especially if you're still alive, it helps you look at life as an opportunity, rather than something that you're here just to kind of endure.
Yeah, I so resonate with, and I don't mind you being preachy, by the way, because if I'm
It's
trying
part
to
of
do
it.
if I'm trying to do anything with this thing, is to allow everybody to be themselves, you know?
Mm,
And and like I said, with you, it just feels like it doesn't matter what subject we're talking about, and you're talking through your filters, I'm talking through my filters, we still somehow understand each other. And there's a lot of resonance in there, like even saying that I've had enough of my own bullshit, and it's literally what's been happening with me. Like, I know I have this feeling of, can somebody else come and save me already? Can somebody else come
yeah,
and deal with
yeah,
my shit? And I know that's
yeah.
not gonna happen. I know the only person that can save me is me. The only person that can
Mm,
parent me is me, because I even had that feeling of, my God, it just feels like I want to be a child right now in my bedroom, just sitting there, crying, sleeping, whatever, working through whatever darkness is coming up inside of me. And somebody else can deal with everything else. Somebody else can cook. Somebody else can look after the house, find a house to live in, find a job. Anybody else can do that except me right now, because I just want to be a little child. So I knew, even in that I can just allow it to be, because I knew the more, and I've noticed, the more I try, whenever something like this come up, the more I try to fix it and to come out of it before it's done, before it's ready, before I felt fully the emotions of whatever's coming up to the surface, it's not working. I just create
mm.
more resistance, and the more I try to get out of it, the more I stay in it. So this past few weeks, this week has been a lot better. So today is Monday. Since last week, it's been a lot better. But before that, it just felt like it got darker and darker and darker, and I couldn't see no way out. And I thought, the only person that can save me is me. And I had many times, I had Estelle. You know Estelle, you've met her. Well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
through text, whatever. I keep having her. She's very much in my head, quite a lot, and I know, and I can hear her. You gotta change something, you have to do something different, because you're constantly in a loop. Same thing that I spoke about earlier, that's my theme. Being in a loop and being in a bubble, by the way, because I remember growing up, that's what it felt like. It felt like we lived in a bubble. We lived in the bubble of, in the house, we played with each other, and then we played in the garden, and that was it. That's how I remember it. We didn't go out to play with many other kids, maybe just our cousins over the road, but that was about it. Or meeting our cousins from the other town. That was kind of it. That was it. That was our interaction with other people. We didn't have
Mhm.
friends coming over. We didn't go over to friends. So we lived in a bubble. And then I'm like, it feels like I'm doing the same now. It feels like I'm keeping myself in a bubble somewhat. And I know that I need to burst out of it. I know there's benefit to insights and to working with yourself and meditating, journaling, crying, breath work, whatever work you want to do, prayer, because that's one too. There's so much benefit to having time for yourself, but there's also time to go out. And that's where Estelle comes in, because this is what she's been telling me. Like, you've done enough of going within, you need to go without now. And that being having enough of being the victim of my own life, right? Because that's what it turns into, oh, poor me. So can I
Mm.
just change that? Can I just switch it into, I'm gonna go and do whatever I need to do for myself right now? I'm gonna go and find ways to interact with other people, even though it feels a bit hard. Sometimes it feels like I can't, because there's those voices. But this is what I appreciate a lot about our conversations too. The fact that it doesn't matter what we talk about. It doesn't matter what what comes up, we still resonate. I think there's very little places where we don't. You know, because even
Yeah.
how you described about hell can run loose and whatever, I so resonate. I know what you mean.
Mm. Mm. And I think that even with the things that we don't completely understand, because they're specifics of our um, belief systems, I
Yeah.
think I, I think that they don't necessarily need to become stumbling blocks. Do you see what I'm
Yes.
saying? They
Yes.
don't.
Oh,
Because I really like. Can I tell you one of the reasons why I really 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 love the way that my faith is? It's teaching me to listen a little bit more and to accept differences and to look, how should I put it, with the intent to understand where people are coming from rather than to say, well, you don't really match up with this criteria for my church. Do you see what I'm saying?
mhm.
And
Yes.
this is what, for me, my faith goes beyond the religious organization,
Yeah.
because it, um,
I totally see that. I totally see that. And I
you
believe
know,
the one thought that I had as you were talking and describing this is I feel like if there's any if there's such thing as unconditional love, I feel like that's what's going on between us, to be honest.
oh, I
Even
love that.
though seriously, like I know when I think of unconditional love, it feels completely different. But if I put it onto what our relationship is like, for the fact of what you just said, you know, you don't try to make it fit into a certain belief of yours, and I'm not trying to do that with you either. It's like every time we talk, I go away feeling like I still love you, you know, like I love you. Like that's it.
But you know what? I judged you a lot.
Good
So
for
you need
you.
to,
That's on you. That's on you.
but I had to first judge you a lot before I came to this place of, kind of, all
Don't
right,
we all? Really,
but
don't we all? This is how we learn, right? This is like I said this earlier, I think that that's what this is teaching me too. Judging something or somebody or some situation is only teaching me to have more acceptance. Because after all, I'm just judging a part of myself. You know, that's
mm,
how I see it. There's something inside of me that I'm judging, or something outside that I'm seeing that I'm judging. So maybe I shouldn't fucking judge it and just accept that there's differences and then
I
there's
actually ended up feeling quite grateful that I had this experience with you because it felt like
Mm,
a preparation for when I have problems with my own children.
right. Yeah, it makes sense.
I mean, there's a lot more to talk, but some other
But I'm
time.
very grateful. I'm very grateful that you got on now and that we got to have this conversation. So I'm just gonna say thank you for being here and for chatting with me and for sharing whatever goodness you've got inside of you. And let's do it again another time. I don't know.
Mm. Yeah,
We can get more into
same for
other.
me.
Okay. Merci, Yuli. Bye.
Couple.
Bye bye.